We will call the December 17th, 2019 regular meeting of the Manitou Springs City Council to order. Just as a note, this is our last official meeting of the year. We will reconvene again on January 7th. So for those of you who are regulars, you're more than welcome to show up next Tuesday and the following Tuesday, but we won't be in session. Anyway, Mr. Schmidt, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Durant. Councilor Smith.
Here.
Councilor Elder.
Here.
Councilor Rohr.
Here.
Councilor Woolbrook.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fortune.
Present.
Councilor Todd.
Present.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Just as a quick reminder, please do use your microphones. Anyone who's going to speak up from the public, we're going to ask you to speak into the microphone as well. We've heard positive comments that we can hear, people can hear us, and if we continue to be diligent, hopefully that will continue to work. We have a motion and a second concerning the agenda. Is there any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item E, public comment on non-agenda item. Let me just ask if there are folks here who would like to speak about the match proposal. 1, 2, okay. Fine. We do ask, and for those of you who raised your hands, this is not new instruction, just to keep your comments to a couple minutes. Typically we don't have a back and forth conversation, but we would welcome you to make your comments. Mr. Carpenter.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, staff, Jeff! Just sit over there.
We think you out.
And fellow citizens, I live at 280 Crystal Park Road, Manitou Springs. I also own a commercial building down on the street, and from there I operate a business where we serve awesome $2 two-scoop cones to our customers. So, I was here to speak about the match, but I didn't get the memo that I guess it's being suggested that goes to the future council. So
Right, so it will be on the January
Yeah.
14th agenda.
So I'll honor that, but I'm not going to waste a trip down. I'm not sure if I'll see you guys again. So I know sitting up there, you only hear negatives. So I just want to say to each and every one of you, sometimes I don't agree with what you do, but I appreciate wholeheartedly everything that you do. Thank you for serving. It's tough, and keep rocking on.
Thank you, Mr. President. We appreciate that very much. Anyone else? Johnson?
Natalie Johnson, 22 Taos Place. This is actually a note from Councilman-elect John Shada. He couldn't be here tonight and just wanted to make sure this was on record. Ordinance 1419 was passed on and published on August 28, 2019, according to the list of ordinances that have been passed into law and can be found on the City of Manitou Springs webpage. The ordinance appears to satisfy the required state statute CRS 29-2-102, so I am not really certain what Ms. Davis or the city attorney are actually talking about. Specifically, their contention that the ordinance used by City Council to include the match tax on the ballot did not include or reference the language that levied the tax for which the advance voter approval was being sought. The ordinance appears to do exactly that. Then on December 10th, on first reading, a proposed ordinance 2719 seems to provide the administrative framework to formally place it in the city's municipal code. From the local perspective, this is about who in the city will manage the funding and how the funds will be distributed. The authorization for the city and the state to start collecting the tax is not in dispute. The voters provided that authorization in the law they created on November 5th, 2019. It seems odd that there is some contention that the voters did not create a law or act given the ballot language. It is rather clear as it gives the tax rate. It is clearly a City of Manitou Springs sales tax, and a specific date the tax shall start on was included in the language. That start date is January 1st, 2020. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Mr. Hodges?
Randy Hodges, 142 Clarksley Road is my residence. Have businesses at 711 Manitou Avenue and 902 Manitou Avenue, Unit 102. I'm not here to speak against the match. I think it's a good thing, but I am here to speak in support of the counselors who have slowed this down and looked at this again and make sure it's going to be initiated and implemented in a proper way. It's been kind of rushed through, it's been a rushed deal all this way, and in the time that I've sat up there on council and the government contracting I've done, this thing is just went through at bullet speed. And it didn't have the time for all the vetting that it needs to be done. The 52-page proposal that's out there that everybody talks about, there's a lot of things in there that need some tweaking, and let's just do this right, and I'm in support of doing that and slowing this down.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Hines. Anyone else have a public comment on items not on the agenda? Consent calendar, we have 5 items on the consent calendar. One is reappointment of Mike Casey as a regular member of the City Planning Commission. Casey, are you here? He is here. Oh, there he is, okay. We also have approval of minutes from December 19th, December 3rd, we have warrants of November, and we have the water treatment plant hydropower final design contract. Before I entertain a motion, let me just thank Mr. Casey for your service on the Planning Commission. Since this is a reappointment, we put it on the consent calendar, so we'll do it as part of that. But I did want to thank you for your service and continuing to help the city. Would entertain a motion concerning the consent calendar.
Go ahead.
Your mic's on, very good.
Okay. I'd like to move to approve the consent calendar, but.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. All right. Next is item G, oath of office. We have 3 officers to swear in tonight. Officer Tyler Myers, Officer Nathan Gillespie, and Officer Jeff Schulke. And gentlemen, if you'd like to join us. There's actually 3 parts to this swearing in ceremony. First is I will administer the oath of office. Second is we'll have a formal pinning, and I understand some family members will do that on it. And then we have a department oath that we'll do after we're finished. So what I'd like you to do is just repeat your name and put your name in the blank and we'll do one oath for all. All right. I,
Nate Gillespie.
thank you, do affirm that I will support the Constitution
Affirm that I will support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Colorado,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Colorado,
and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Manitou Springs,
and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Manitou Springs,
and will faithfully perform the duties of the office of police officer
and will faithfully perform the duties of office as a police officer
upon which I am about to enter
upon which I am about to enter
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. You can just line up here, I think oh, there it is. Thank you. All right, so now the second part is pinning. Chief?
So, I'd like to say congratulations to you guys. And having a badge pinned on you as a brand new police officer is probably one of the most awesome experiences you could have in your life. And not only is it weigh about 10 ounces, but it is a very heavy burden because you're entrusted by the community that you serve to faithfully execute the laws of the state of Colorado and to honor those laws and to serve the community, right? You're here to protect, number one, and to serve. But in Manitou, it's about 3 things. It's about quality of life, it's about reducing crime, and reducing the fear of crime. And that's what these 3 young gentlemen right here are going to be tasked by me to do. But the authority for that does not come from me or the badge. It comes from the community they serve, which is the people sitting right in front of us. So I've invited the family members of these three guys to come up and pin their badges on, because the authority behind this badge comes from community, right? They're out here on your behalf. So at this time, I'd like to ask Jeff Schilke's family to come up, if they'd like, and pin his badge on.
Thank you.
It's okay, there's Kevlar on me.
We have Medicare too.
And he wouldn't dare say ow.
Next up, Tyler Myers. And Officer Nate Gillespie. First two guys just passed their post-test this afternoon. So before we started all this, we were waiting on a text. I passed. And they did. And Officer Gillespie started on the 8th and is in field training right now. He came from the Douglas County Sheriff's Department, so a little bit of experience with me. So I think it's important, not just when you start your career, but throughout your career, remind yourself why you're doing this job. So part of that, for a public display of that, I'd like to invite the police officers that are here to come in and then recite our oath of honor.
Come on, Bob.
And what this is a pledge by the police department, by the police officers, to the community of Manitou Springs, why we're here, and what our responsibilities are for you. So if everybody would, raise your right hand, repeat after me. On my honor, I will never betray my integrity, my character, or the public trust.
On my honor, I will never betray my integrity, the character, or the public trust.
I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions.
I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for my actions.
I always maintain the highest ethical standards and uphold the values of my community and the agency I serve. So I think the mayor did that to me when I was serving. I will always maintain the highest ethical standards.
I will always maintain the highest ethical standards.
And uphold the values of my community and the agency I serve.
And uphold the values of my community and the agency that I serve.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Before you leave, hold on. I just wanted to thank Officer Myers, Officer Gillespie, and Officer Schulke for joining our department, and also recognize and thank all of the existing and current members of our department and our chief. Obviously a critical function of our government. We very much appreciate your service to our community, and we welcome our new members, and very much thank and appreciate those that have been here for a while. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
And we will take just a short break. If the family members, you're more than welcome to stay. It'll be a great meeting. It's really exciting. I don't know why you're laughing.
If we lived here.
We're going to do some really good stuff.
Where do you live?
Out in Dayton.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Stand behind us.
Thank you. And you guys get pretty.
Not everybody can't leave. Not here, a few people. Mr. Kennedy, thank you for staying. All right. Chief?
Yes, sir.
You could close that. Chief, someone's bag is under there. I don't know if it's a family member.
Oh, it's mine.
Thank you. Never mind. Anybody want Miss Lewis's bag? All right. Always a special moment to get to swear in the rights. I appreciate it. We'll go ahead and call item H, which is new business. First item of new business is appointment of Bill Kennedy as a regular member of the Housing Authority Board. Mr. Kennedy, thank you for joining us. We did note that there is a letter in our packet from the chair of the Housing Authority Board expressing her pleasure that you've applied. We very much appreciate your applying for this position. And if there's anything you'd like to tell us before we entertain a motion.
My name is Bill Kennedy. I live at 18 Villaloma, first in the beautiful Manitou, and it's a privilege. And I've already talked to Corinne and thanked her for trust.
Well, thank you for being here and for stepping up to help our city. With that, would entertain a motion concerning Mr. Kennedy's appointment.
I move to appoint Mr. Kennedy as a regular member of the Housing Authority Board.
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Kennedy, thank you again. Thank you very much. And we look forward to your good work over the coming years. We'll call item H2, approval of resolution number 2719, a resolution of the City of Manitou Springs, Colorado, authorizing negotiations, purchase, quiet title, and the exercise of the city's power, of eminent domain to acquire and or secure certain real estate property for the Serpentine Drive project.
Yeah, I can take that, Mayor. So
All right.
this basically is a resolution that's required if the city council decides to exercise its power of eminent domain to acquire private property for a public purpose. So before you actually can move forward with condemning any property for city use, you have to express the intent to do so, and then authorize city staff to undertake certain steps to try and acquire the property via regular negotiation. So this piece of property the city has been looking at, or actually more than one parcel, but has been trying to contact the property owners and basically acquire the property with via negotiation, but has been unsuccessful. The resolution itself lays out the reasons for the actual acquisition of the property, which would include trail purposes, some right-of-way for roadway improvements, and to date, we've had an individual, TRS is the name of the company, who's been working to try and acquire the property with an arm's length negotiation, but has been unsuccessful. Given the time that's passed, we thought it would be helpful for the city council to move forward with deciding whether to actually try and acquire the property via eminent domain. What this will do is it'll give us additional rights to go contact the property owner and try and acquire the property under the threat of eminent domain now. It'll actually also provide the property owner some tax advantages if they do decide to sell the property to the city. If we ultimately can't come to an agreement on a price, or any kind of sale, then the city would have the authority to move ahead with an eminent domain lawsuit to condemn the property and acquire it. We still have to pay fair market value, but we wouldn't actually file anything or do that until we came back to city council to discuss it further.
Any questions for Mr. Parker? We have discussed this item, as council will recall, on a number of occasions over a number of years, and this is just the next step in that process. Would entertain a motion concerning resolution 2719.
I move we approve resolution number 2719, a resolution of the City of Manitou Springs, Colorado, authorizing negotiations to purchase quiet title and the exercise of the city's powers of eminent domain to acquire and or secure certain real estate property for the Serpentine Drive project as presented.
Is there a second? I second that. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
I'm not a fan of doing all 3 parcels. I'd really just rather see the Serpentine Drive right-of-way parcel. I don't think the other 2 are necessary.
My understanding is this is, as was discussed in council, it is a proposed trail easement on the other properties, not acquiring the other properties.
It would be acquiring a right for a trail, so.
A right for a trail, so just the small portion, not the entire pieces of property that are noted in the blue and white boxes. Is that your understanding or a different understanding?
That was not my understanding, but still not a real fan.
Okay, either one you're not a fan of.
Correct.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to be clear, though, it is my understanding, Mr. Parker, correct me, is that it's acquiring a small piece of property on what's designated as parcel, last 4 numbers, 3106, 3016, and 3017, would be just for the purposes of a trail easement on those 2 parcels.
So right now, it's basically for a right-of-way. It doesn't specify, what exact rights we should be getting. We can definitely negotiate for an easement instead of fee title as part of this. So this doesn't specify the exact nature of the ownership interest we'd be acquiring. So it could be fee, but we can definitely negotiate for an easement that would work.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
I'm looking at the map. We don't have the map up on the screen. Is it possible to click on the attachment there? It's the map. Yeah, just a clarification here. The 2 parcels that we're talking about with right away, or what Jeff outlined, are in white and in blue. That's my understanding. What we're talking about acquiring outright is what we've called the whale and the whale tail. During our work session, my recollection is that the determination was made that once we went through the whole process, the incremental cost of acquiring the whole whale as opposed to just a portion of it, it was a very small amount to get the whole whale. So we leaned toward acquiring the whole red property, and that's something that I would support. I think Jay's question begged of me just clarifying that on the map so we're all on the same page.
Any other questions or comments?
I would just say that the proposed trail easement has been in the works as part of the entire creek walk plan, which is also part of the mobility proposal. So, and it is for an easement, not to acquire those 2 properties, or whatever the
Right now, the description
ability to build a
right.
creek walk on it.
Well, right now, the way it is, we have the authority to acquire the property and fee as written. So you'd be given that authority in this particular resolution, but we would not be proceeding with anything without further city council direction, and we can certainly seek to just acquire the easement instead of the actual property fee.
Okay. So anyway, I'm obviously highly supportive of having, I find it critical that we be able to build that entire creek walk, the entire distance from east to west. and this is a very critical component of that.
Any other questions or comments? Would entertain a motion concerning.
We already have a motion and a second. Oh, sorry.
See, I even checked that.
Yeah, well,
All right, that was all of 7 minutes ago or something. So we have a motion and a second concerning resolution 2719. If there's any further discussion, please vote. Motion passes 5-2. We'll call item H3, first reading of ordinance number 2519, an ordinance repealing and reenacting chapter 5.10 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning tobacco product licensing, and repealing chapter 5.11 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code. Mr. Parker, do you want to give us just a brief summary of this ordinance?
I'd be happy to. So this is an ordinance that repeals two current chapters of your municipal code. Originally, City Council's direction was to increase the age for purchasing vaping products from 18 to 21. And your current code currently has an age of 18 for that. When we made the initial revisions that were brought back to the city a week ago, we decided that if we're going to increase the age from 18 to 21 for vaping products, we should be increasing the age from 18 to 21 for tobacco products as well. It didn't really make a lot of sense to do that. City Council had some questions about that ordinance, given that it was basically changing two sort of relatively older provisions of your code chapters. So we ended up combining the ordinance into one ordinance and dealing with everything in one chapter now. So we're repealing both 510 and 511, which is the licensing scheme, and then the actual purchasing operation scheme. Now it's just one ordinance, and basically what it does is it provides sort of a comprehensive scheme for regulating purchasing and sale of tobacco products, vaping products, electronic cigarettes, and it raises the age from 18 to 21 to purchase those items. So it includes licensing and then restrictions on businesses that are going to do that, and then restrictions on people buying the products as well.
Any questions for Mr. Park? If not, we do have a letter that we just passed out from Dr. Doman, who is also present. I don't know if you want to just give us a brief summary of the letter.
I don't think I need to.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
But basically, the letter is in support of this action, encouraging us to do that to help us protect our kids here in the community, give some rationale for it and so forth. We appreciate the collaboration on the school district. Appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I did have a couple items. Anybody else have any comments or questions concerning the ordinance?
Are we ready for the motion?
Not quite yet, although we could have the discussion afterwards. I have a couple questions. For those who were wondering why mints and hand gels were on the list, we did get some information about that. I was wondering why mints and hand gels were on the list. Apparently, you can put tobacco or other kinds of vaping products in those items, so they're on the list. I appreciate that clarification. I was wondering why, from my reading, and maybe I missed it, there isn't the word vaping product in this ordinance.
Well, we could certainly clarify that, but the electronic smoking device definition basically includes what would be commonly known as a vaping product.
And my request would be to actually put the terms vaping products, since that is a common term, if you will.
We could add it to the definition.
It would be nice to have that so that there was no question in anybody's mind, very clear, vaping products are covered.
Yeah, it'd be 5.10.020H, which defines electronic smoking device.
So is everybody okay with that? We would ask as part of the motion perhaps. The second question I had was about fees. I was wondering if we might consider two things about fees. One, having a different fee for existing businesses. I was trying to lessen the burden on the existing businesses who have to now incur, I believe it's $175 fee. Could we have a fee for existing businesses different from new businesses?
Well, so my quick answer to that would probably be no, because I think, well, I know when you adopt a fee, it needs to basically be related to the cost of administering the license. I have not seen fees broken out that way for other types of fees. My concern would be is that the cost of administering a license would be the same for existing and for new ones, and so it would be difficult to justify.
I wondered about that, and I wanted to at least ask.
That would be my concern doing that. So my short answer would be I think it would be risky to do that.
My second question is whether we might, in understanding the purpose of the fee is to help administer the ordinance, whether we might add one of the purposes of the fees to provide youth education. Right now, there's a term for licensee education, and I wonder if there is excess funds, if we might allocate that towards youth education.
So, your city administrator gave me a heads up about that earlier today, but unfortunately, a little bit later than I needed to actually research that issue. Here's the concern, and you may be able to do that. I wanna make sure this is not seen as a tax, it's a fee, and fees need to basically be related to the cost of administering the license. And I'm a little bit concerned that, possibly education, other than related to the license, could not constitute a permissible fee, but I'm not positive. I wanna find some law on that and make sure I give you a correct answer. So if I get direction to do that, I can have it for second reading and, advice from the new city council on that issue by your second reading.
So let me get some consensus whether, if we can do that, if there's, consensus on council to include, youth education as part of that, part of the purpose of how we can use the fee. Yes.
If we do that, I would just ask, we're gonna have to go back and look at what the fee would be increased to, because right now it's really just used to manage this. And I think we only have about 8 to 10 stores, so then how much would we need to increase it to provide that education is something that we would have to look at. And what would the education look like?
Let me see if we can get some consensus from council whether there's any desire to even look into that.
Well, I think if it was community-wide and you had a lot more businesses, which I understand that I'm all for education, but I think if the councils and the city continue doing what we've done in the past 3 years of taking some of the, revenue from the marijuana money and giving it to the Partners for Healthy Choices to help do education that way, maybe that part could maybe be increased a little bit to add to another form of education. So, yeah, I'm all about education, but with 10 businesses, I don't know how much we'd have to charge all in.
Yeah, I was hoping it would be within the fee if depending on what the cost, and obviously not burden our business owners significantly. I understand. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
As an exception, I'll agree with Councilman Smith, but I would add that I think the materiality of what might come out of license fees and the tracking of it would just be an extra overhead on city staff and very small dollars. So I think the bundle approach that Gary outlined is the way to go. We want to stay conscious of education for youth on any number of dimensions and work partnership with the school district on that.
Okay, anybody else?
Aren't there already tobacco dollars for education from the state?
There are, you get a share in that as long as you don't have your own cigarette tax, so.
And we do not have our own
No.
cigarette tax, okay, so we do get some funding
That's
for
right.
tobacco education?
Yep.
Okay, anybody know how much that is?
No, I don't know.
Okay, all right, that's good information. Anybody else? All right. So it sounds like perhaps not, it sounds like there are other sources of revenue for that, but it does sound like there was consensus to include the word vaping products or vaping in, so it's very clear about that as well. Any other questions concerning this ordinance? In entertaining a motion, it has been suggested that second reading be on January 21st. For several reasons. One, we will not have any formal business taken on January 7th, and the next formal work session would be the 21st. And so, in entertaining a motion, I would ask that, otherwise it would be automatically coming up to the next meeting, and so would ask if those in favor of the motion would include that as well.
Clarification on that,
Yes,
so you
sir.
said the 21st would be a work session?
The 21st is a formal meeting.
Formal meeting? Okay, I just misunderstood.
The 14th is a work session. The 7th, we don't have any formal business to take place on the swearing in.
I personally would like to see this council, if we did the first reading on this, be the ones maybe do a short join and do the second reading on this and put this in place, because I think it's been something we've worked on as a council, and I'd like to finish it up as this council.
All right. The other reason, Councilman Smith, that had been requested was Ms. Howell has requested some time to connect with the businesses and let them know what we're doing. So the question is over the holidays whether there would be enough time to do that. But I understand
I just
the
think,
thought process.
yeah, that's my thought on the whole thing.
Sure. And obviously we can go either way.
And as much as I'd like to do it on the 7th,
I think it would be more prudent to wait until the 21st. We rushed a lot of things, and I think that it would be appropriate in this case to just take a little more time. My sense is that the new council will support this as well. So I personally think it would be better for all concerned, especially since this is such a drastically different ordinance than what we saw last week, 2 weeks ago. And I do think that communication with the business community is going to be critical, because we weren't talking about licensing 2 weeks ago whenever we last talked about this. So that would be my preference, is to let it. I mean, I'm hugely supportive of this. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. I know that I personally have seen things in the news lately about federal regulation, and I know that the doctor had some insights into that, and I was hoping that you might share that with council about where the federal government is or is not heading, and the implications of that for our city.
Come on up and introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Dr. Edward Maynard. I'm a pediatrician. I live in Colorado Springs, but during my long years of practice, I cared for many families and children from there too. And I'm vice president for the Colorado State chapter for the American Academy of Pediatrics, and involved in advocacy on issues in that role. One thing, first of all, I think you misspoke, Mr. Parker, in that this ordinance is to require that the sale of tobacco products not be allowed to those under 21. It doesn't address the purchase and doesn't penalize the purchase.
Oh, you know, I appreciate that, because the old ones did, and then city council's direction was to not try and punish the purchasers. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Fortune had asked whether enactment of 21 years old as the age for sale of tobacco products at either the state or federal level might substitute or preempt this kind of action on the local level. And I told her that actually what's going on politically is that Juul and other tobacco companies are actually trying to enact tobacco 21 legislation in a number of states and at the federal level in order to preempt local action, knowing that local enforcement of these kind of laws is much more effective than state or federal enforcement. So we would advocate still that localities enact this kind of ordinance and enact strong local enforcement.
Thank you.
And if I could just follow up, based on Councilman Smith's concern, wanting to do this sooner rather than later, is there any possibility that federal legislation would be enacted prior to the 21st of January? What's the likelihood of that happening?
I don't think that's likely at all. God knows how long it would take even if there were action. So.
Hold on, if we're gonna have any comments, come on up if you got something, Mr. Dowdy.
Alan Delwich, 210 Linda Vista. I just happened to read in the budget bill that was passed yesterday by Congress, by the House, includes tobacco 21, and it looks like it will pass in the Senate too, and that will be happening in the next couple of days. So it's
You didn't happen to read in that fine print what impact that would have on local?
no, it's just a national ban on under 21. And Mitch McConnell, believe it or not, was one of the supporters of this. So it'll probably pass in the Senate as well.
Mr. Parker, I don't suspect from yesterday to today.
Not aware of that.
You have a right to.
But I don't think it's going to preempt our ability to do that anyways. So I can't imagine that it would, frankly. But I don't know anything about the federal law, sorry.
And the news reported yesterday that they think it is gonna pass by the end of the year.
Okay. So, interesting news.
Great.
Obviously, we have a little bit of, we need to decide, should we go on the 7th or the 21st? Mr. Graham, one of the rationale was there is going to be a joint Board of Education City Council meeting in January. Do you recall? Was this going to be on the 21st?
The 21st, I believe.
It's the 14th.
The 14th.
Which is a work session. Okay, never mind. Okay, so other questions, comments from council, whether we want to move, as part of this motion, move that second reading is on the seventh? Probably not necessary if it's going to be on the seventh, but is necessary if we're going to defer second reading to the 21st.
Well, you already know my opinion, I think seventh is correct, I totally, go on record that I, disagree with holding off on this, I don't really see the need to, and I think that if the 10 businesses in Manitou that are selling products, that have a problem with us putting this into place, then they shouldn't be selling their product, in my opinion, because if they've got an issue that they can sell it to kids or people under 21 and we're pushing it to 21, it seems like they should be in support of us doing that kind of thing, if you're a good business person. So, I don't see the rationale of going back out and asking again, because if 10 people come in and say, we don't want this, what are we gonna do? We're just gonna say we're not gonna do it? I mean, this is for the future of, children in our community, so that's my opinion, and that's where I'm gonna stand with that.
Ms. Parker, could you clarify if this ordinance, there's a couple different choices here. One, we could adopt the ordinance on the seventh and have it effective at a subsequent date. If we don't do that, what's the process? Will folks have to apply by a certain date? I don't recall seeing that in the ordinance. What's the timing?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, there's no delay in the way the ordinance is currently written.
And so would folks be in violation if they do not have a license by the date this ordinance is effective?
That's correct, which is a great point. I'm just checking, making sure.
So that doesn't give people very much time to comply with the ordinance.
Yeah, 5 days after.
So we would need to either delay the implementation of it, because it's really not feasible for people to obtain a license. I wouldn't think it'd be very feasible for people to obtain a license, so we have to figure out the actual implementations.
Yeah, we could put a delayed effective date.
We could do that. Anybody else wanna weigh in with regard to the seventh or the 21st, or some other aspect?
No, not for me to weigh in, but I got an indication from the CEO of the chamber that she thought the film might be appropriate. We've not heard from Denise about this time frame. We thought maybe more time was necessary. Just would respect your views. There's a proxy by body language, there's a proxy by your being represented by others.
I just think if you pass it on January 7th, that I'd like for it to not go into effect for a little bit of time, so we have time to go out, communicate, and make sure we're all prepared for this and have everything in place. You can pass it and we will work diligently to make it happen, but I'd like to have a little bit of communication with everybody and make sure. So if you can add that to the ordinance, that it wouldn't go into effect to a later date, that would help us.
January 21st being that date.
February 1st would be great, that gives us a month to really go out there, communicate, make sure we have our police staff ready and ready to go.
All right. We'll get a friendly amendment.
Well, we don't have any motion on the floor at the moment.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, we would entertain a motion.
I move we approve ordinance number 2519, ordinance repealing and reenacting chapter 5.10 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning tobacco product licensing, and repealing chapter 5.1 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code as presented at first reading, changing 5.10.020H to include a reference to the vaping device.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
It's a motion and a second, any further discussion?
Just a question.
Yes.
Do we need to put in February 1st?
No, if it is silent, it will come up at our next regular meeting. And the implementation is going to be the 7th unless we amend that. We can also do that on second reading, by the way. We can do it tonight, or we can do it on second reading.
Would you be open to a friendly amendment, Councilman Rohr, to make the implementation date February 21st?
February 21st?
February first. February, just do it next time. I think we'll give everybody a little bit more time in the community to figure out how long it really will take.
Okay, so we can change that on second reading if we desire to do so. All right, I heard a motion, I don't recall if I heard a second. Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. All right, we will have this matter back on January 7th for second reading. And thank you all for being here. We appreciate all of your efforts and help on this ordinance as well.
Thank you. Can I bring something up on this? I know it's passing.
A little bit out of order, but go ahead.
I'm sorry, just that, that means that right now the staff has to assume that it's gonna go into effect on January 7th. And that puts a lot of pressure on them to get ready over the holidays. So I think it would be nice if they had some sense that we're gonna make that change later. So just seems a little unfair to staff, that's all.
Maybe we, well.
I'm sorry I didn't think of that before we had to vote.
Let's just see if we can get a consensus about the starting date in terms of February first. February first, Bob?
February first.
Nancy?
February 1st.
It's fine, but we don't even have to bring this back on the 7th if you don't want to.
Well, it's going to come up, it's gonna be on the agenda now.
You could always decide now to put it on a later agenda.
You can
That's a
put it
different
on
issue than
later.
approving the ordinance in first reading, so you don't have to automatically put it on the 7th.
My concern is just, again, with staff over the holidays, it's a little stressful to have a big project like this for a city clerk and a city council.
So I'm assuming it will come back on the 7th, and I'm hearing at least 3 down here for February 1st implementation.
February 1st or later if necessary.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but no earlier than it's our intention, at least at the moment, not to have it implemented any earlier than February 1st, could be later. All right, does that give some clarification to staff?
Yeah, because we'll also be bringing in February the revised fees, so we need that in place as we move forward, so thank you.
So it sounds like maybe, Mr. Parker, what you could do is prepare a draft that has that, in the February 1st date.
Yeah, that'd be
We can
fine.
always change that.
Yeah, the draft will be ready.
All right.
And we will see it January 7th.
And we will see it January 7th. All right, we'll call item H, item I, hearings. We have a public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 2619, consideration of imposing a moratorium on e-scooter rental business in the city of Manitou Springs. Before we have discussion on that, if you all wanted to read, I meant to do that. You're more than welcome to stay for the scooter discussion, but also recognize you may have other things to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments concerning ordinance number 2619? If not, we entertain a motion.
I move we approve ordinance number 2619, an ordinance of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, imposing a temporary 6-month moratorium on the issuance of business licenses to e-scooter operators.
Is there a second?
Second.
Did you capture the second?
No.
No.
Bob.
About.
Councilman Tom.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second concerning ordinance number 2619. Any further discussion? If not, please. I'm sorry? Did the whole hearing thing? We didn't do a whole hearing thing. Thank you. So we're gonna back up. Mr. Parker, I'm not sure.
I apologize for that. I was looking at your tobacco issues right now, sorry.
It's not your fault, but there was someone I could point to. So we will go ahead and hold a public hearing on second reading on this ordinance. Does anybody wish to speak concerning this ordinance? If not, we will close the public hearing. We do have a motion, we do have a second. Any further discussion? Councilman Moore, thank you very much. If not, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. All right, item J, receive or act on council correspondence. We'll start with Councilman Smith.
Well, I did have, a few correspondence in my neighborhood about how the plowing of snow happened in the center of the street, which if anybody's parked along the curb, then people are getting stuck in the middle of the snow. I understand their logic behind it, that they want to put it next to the curb, but it just doesn't really work. And I'm just saying that, that's my opinion, you guys can say whatever, but if anybody parks in front of their house, then there's not enough room to get around and go through everything. So now it's spread all over.
It was a test that failed. We'll go back to the old way.
Okay.
I think the other plowing in town worked well.
Yeah, I think.
So it was a trial. Some people thought it might work better. We tested it out. There's other problems with that, so we'll go back to the original plan.
Okay. Yeah, I helped my neighbor get out twice, so, and he's like 80 years old, and couldn't get his car across the little berm, so. And I guess the other thing is, I wanna commend, our new police chief. I think that when we hired him, he said he was gonna do a lot of things, and I've been hearing a lot of positive things from him, about him, and also, I don't know if we're at full staff now, but seeing how quickly you're working and bringing applicants and doing the whole process and bringing people before us is amazing, because we hadn't seen that before. I haven't seen that in the 8 years I've been on council, so I wanna commend you on what you're doing. It's a great job. Also, I just wanna say, this is my little last minute or last ditch speech, because there won't be one on the 7th, because I'm gonna be pretty quiet, I'm just gonna exit out of here. But I wanna say that it's been a privilege working with this council. I know that we haven't agreed on everything, but when we walk out the door, we're still shaking hands and we're sociable to each other, which I think is a great thing that we've been able to accomplish. Like I say, we haven't agreed on everything, but we make things work. Along with the staff, it's been 8 years that I've been up here, I've seen a lot of things continue, but we totally, I guess you just come in here and say, this council totally turned everything over, and we've changed everything up. We've got new management, we've got new thoughts, we've got new everything going on here, and I say it's been amazing, from the court clerk to administration, and I think the only thing that we need to do as far as the council is start using our administration people a lot more, instead of going to, leaving the staff alone. If they have concerns, I'll call Roy, or I'll text Roy at 5 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, what are you doing, or what's going on, or whatever. But I think that's the way to do it. I really do, and I think it works well. We're leaving these individuals doing their jobs. So I'm proud of what we've done, proud of what we've accomplished, and moving forward, this vaping ordinance is really important to me, and me moving on to the school board is something I feel I need to do within the community and be a big part of that. I welcome, and that you guys are been my friends for the last 4 years and 2 years and whatever you want to say, and I feel the same way. So I think that'll be a continued relationship that we'll always have. So, and welcome the new council on board on the 7th. So thank you. That's all I have.
Councilman Todd?
I have two topics. The first one's slightly longer than the second one, so it will be very short. The first topic is regarding the mock or match. 2 points on that. There's been a lot, really robust community dialogue and feedback across the range relative to the seat in which I sit. And on a very positive note, want to absolutely recognize the leadership of Mayor Geray, Mayor-elect Graham, and initiative team leader Natalie Johnson for coming together on this item and agreeing to delve into it on January 14th. A lot of kudos for that leadership in the midst of a lot of bumpy dialogue, to just really stand tall on that and present that to the community. It's really deflated the issue, and I think it's going to allow the new council and the community to focus on that with a nice outcome that does indeed support these entities in a healthy manner. The second comment regarding match is that I heard from two citizens very specifically concerned about in our city code, there's a section under the taxation code, and there's a section under the I'll call it referendum or ballot issue element of our code, that they thought that perhaps some of the things we were doing were in violations of those code details. Not looking for an answer here tonight, but what I will do is, on your suggestion, Gary, that council really rely on staff, I will send a note to Denise and Jeff, with that correspondence that I've had, and you'll see I kind of reached the point on it where I said, well, I really need to bring this up at council correspondence with these individuals. So thank you for that in advance. Then the very short one is, this is great news. I actually got a call from the neighborhood which has been concerned about, for over 2 years, 3 abandoned vehicles sitting on the front lawn of a property. And I actually got a proactive call that said, wow, we're down to 1 car. Congratulations, city. So I really appreciate, I know Roy, you did the thing, one more follow going on that one. But thank you for that, and Denise, your support on that right out of the gate when that came to your attention.
Well, I wanna recognize Kaj, he's done a phenomenal job with that.
Right. The challenge for the new council will be to get this into our actual city code so we can address some other similar situations, not quite as intrusive as this one to a neighborhood, but we do have other issues of this ilk. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem Fletcher.
Yeah, first of all, Gary, my experience was just the opposite. I had citizens just over the moon about having the snow in the middle of the road, so I don't know what the right answer is.
Maybe rotate snowstorms?
Maybe, every other one, yeah. So I hopefully will get some more feedback on that, and I'm not sure if it was a completely failed experiment at this point, but it's an experiment, so. Secondly, I don't know, John and I were at the parade on Saturday night, and I tell you, it was great. I've gone to all 4 parades, and this was by far the most crowded. I mean, the sidewalks were just packed all the way up and down Manitou, and it was fun, and I think everyone had a good time. So anyone who helped and supported on that, good job. That was a good event. And lastly, I went to a Faith and Civic Leaders forum this morning on prison assistance. And it's one of John Weiss's schemes or dreams, depending on your perspective. But there was probably at least 60. They were standing room only people there, and they've got a really nice plan for going into the future. And I would say that Manitou, a lot of the problems are here in Manitou, and a lot of the solutions are outside of Manitou, and this is certainly one of those cases. So when prisoners or people come back into our community, that is potentially an expense, and the community needs, the whole point of this was that the community needs to help support our prison populations, and ultimately, if we can, that's a huge reduction in costs to the state. It was just astounding to hear the budgets this morning. So other areas have done really excellent prison reform, and so I'm looking forward to working on that initiative some more. And that is all. Thank you.
Great.
I only have one thing. Had a great meeting with Ellie Johnson and Lori Wood, Karen Borchold, and Ms. Howell about Creative District MOU, which was never implemented on council. It was a great kickoff meeting, and those of you who are continuing on council look forward to it coming soon to a meeting near you. It will be a really move us forward. So look for it. That's all I had.
I have several things. The first thing I have is that everybody got an email from Tim Haas this evening. Mr. Haas called me before the meeting and said that he wanted to come to public comment about his company Christmas party was tonight, and his son plays basketball tonight. And he wanted me to read this into the public record, so I'm going to go ahead and do that as council correspondence. This is from Tim Haas. To his honor, the mayor and fellow city council members, I don't sleep in Manitou Springs, and as a result, I didn't get to vote on the MACH ballot initiative. As a business owner, I've observed this whole process with a sense of bewilderment. I have read the various one-sided opinion pieces essentially claiming that we are all intentionally discriminating against disabled people because of an ADA issue with a 100-year-old library building. I've also read the articles where citizens were chastised by Match committee members for disagreeing with the initiative. My company owns 5 retail locations in Manitou Springs along with a warehouse for receiving merchandise. We are the largest private employer in the city, and no one from the Match committee ever even bothered to ask my opinion. Our policy has typically been to remain silent on proposals like this for fear of alienating 50% of our customer base. After reading the Gazette article this morning, I can no longer remain silent. As Mr. Kavanaugh lectured about the golden rule in his opinion piece this morning, I actually started laughing. This process has been a catastrophe from the beginning. The citizen-initiated ballot question was rejected by the city clerk, and the issue should have died there. Since it was brought back to life as a council-referred initiative, the council has every right to reject it, and I stand with the councilors that were brave enough to try to stop it. If you insist on moving forward, please take into consideration my primary concern, how funds will be dispersed. The issue has divided the city because of a bully-type tactic by some members of the Match committee and poor planning by our mayor. Imagine future council members pushed to run for the sole purpose of making sure their favorite nonprofit benefits from these grants. That being said, a transparent process administered by council is the only logical way to move forward. Every tax hurts business. If you want less business, raise taxes. I find it insulting that this tax will subsidize some nonprofits while others struggle to survive. I don't know about you, but I like to choose where I donate my money rather than having some phantom committee disperse grants to their friends. If an artist needs to be subsidized to survive, maybe they should change their profession. At this point, you are all in a tough place. I don't think you have any choice but to follow the will of the voters because this has been so mismanaged. In hindsight, many things should have been done differently. I wish I would have had the courage to speak up earlier as a business owner. I suspect 3 yes votes would have changed if people understood the facts. Please understand that I'm not alone and that a number of business owners have voiced private support to the 4 councilors that were brave enough to say no, but fear reprisal if they voice their concerns publicly. There is a spiral of silence that has been created in this community where people feel alone in their beliefs and afraid to voice them or have their businesses attacked. I always find it humorous when people talk about how inclusive and loving Manitou Springs has become. The truth is, everything is fine as long as you agree with a certain mindset. If you don't and you voice it publicly, you are criticized, and in my experience, you receive death threats and your business is boycotted. All of this sounds fun, but I will continue to sleep somewhere else. Good luck, Tim Haas, President, THE Enterprises, Inc. This is Garden of the Gods Trading Post, Manitou Outpost, Mountain High Sportswear, Mountain High Gallery, and Gibbs and the Vault. So that's just the note that he wanted me to read into the public record. My second issue is match related because I've had a number of questions from people in my ward about the library. And early when I came on council, I know the mayor had asked Wade Burkholder if we could see what's going through the planning process and where things are, just globally. And I know that in my ward, people really need some clarification on where we are with the library. And it would be really nice to know what's been done and what the future looks like for that. And I think that getting that information out there would really be helpful going forward. So that's a request on behalf of a number of people in my ward who have said, I don't understand where we are with this. And I think we can be more transparent about that, and it can come from city administration and planning, and we can know that as a community without guessing or taking sides. So if there's some way for us to see that in the coming year, especially as we move forward with this ordinance, it would be really helpful, I think, for a number of my constituents. Third thing is the Barker House and parking, and John Modis, who's on the Transportation Parking Board, has some correspondence that came to him via parking at the Barker House. He did wrap Roy into that this morning since Roy's taking on the parking. But I think there's, this is one of the things we knew would happen with the Banana Manor decision. we knew that suddenly everybody would come forward and say, me too, and that's okay, that's, you know, what we anticipated. But I think it would behoove the city to research where we are with, the Barker House has had a change of owners in the time that I've lived here, which is 18 years now. And I'm not sure that with each ownership change that it's been very clear what was agreed upon and what their rules are. And I think we need to be on top of that by researching it through planning and understanding what the rules are, if they've been enforced, and all of those things, so that as we move forward with the Barker House, we're actually moving from a place that's based on facts and not just what one owner passed with another. So that, I think, and Roy, if you need my help with anything, and John is really ready to jump on board and help with this, and I just wanted to make sure I got that into the record. The last thing I'd like to say is similar to what Gary did, because I think that January 7th will be really fast, and it'll be a lot going on, and we'll have a lot of new people coming in. They're really excited. And I just want to take a really quick moment to say that when I got on council, I won the lottery because I got to sit next to Becky Elder. And it's been the most amazing experience for me. And in my career as a professional and as a mom, I have never, ever met another woman who has lifted up everyone, but certainly other women. I mean, there is not a time when this woman doesn't lift up everyone in this room. And she is an inspiration to me, and an inspiration to me, and I always talk to my daughters about this, because it's so rare, and it's so wonderful, and it's so necessary, and I always tell my daughters to be like Becky. Anytime they have a challenge in work or school or their friends, I just make sure that they're lifting people up and they're not stepping on anybody or holding anybody back to bring them forward. And this woman has lived it every day. It's been a joy to sit next to you. You've made it possible for me to be here over and over again, week after week. And I thank you for that.
I don't even have a cleanup. Wow.
But it is your turn if you have any comments.
Thank you, Susan, that's very sweet.
Susan was ready.
No. Well, I wasn't expecting that, but unfortunately, I haven't been able to keep my liaison appointments or anything, so I do not have anything to report. I've been living like a mushroom. So, and that was a real surprise, thank you.
Thank you. I had a couple items. One, just an update on the selection of municipal prosecutor. I had at the last meeting volunteered to participate in that. Since that meeting, I've looked at the schedule in January. I've looked at my own schedule, and I realized that it really is just not going to work for me to participate in that. So I did reach out to Dan Stewart, and I want to propose to you that there are a number of people that we have that are willing to serve on that group, including Dan Stewart. David Webster is unable to do that, but I also reached out, talked to Dan, and I reached out to Jason Burns. Jason's name came up. He's a Manitou resident, has been a Manitou resident for many years. He's also a municipal judge in Colorado Springs. And so I'd like to propose that Mr. Burns potentially be on that panel. And I also reached out to Lynn Lee. Lynn heads up the Manitou Springs Restorative Justice Program. She participates in our court process on a regular basis, and I certainly think can offer a lot of input in terms of, particularly with regard to restorative justice. I also reached out to Brian Murphy. Mr. Murphy is willing to do it. His background is much more in the corporate real estate, as I had thought. Is willing to serve, certainly would be helpful, I'm sure. My suggestion, and I just wanted to confirm this with the group, that we move forward with Mr. Burns, Ms. Lee, and Mr. Stewart as the panel. Unless there's any objection, otherwise I'm and pass that on to Katrina at CPSHR, and they'll move forward with the approval. I just wanted to let you know that. The last thing I have is I ran into a gentleman last night who has been trying to encourage and pay for some new tennis court nets. And he asked me to bring up if there was some chance between now and spring that might move forward. I don't know if he reached out to you again.
He hasn't, but we are working on that. It actually is on our radar, and of course, we're looking at some ways to do it, and it looks like we found some pretty easy ways to do it that are within the regulations of pickleball and tennis.
He's trying to have nets that are, compatible with both pickleball
Yes.
and tennis. Apparently, the current nets are not compatible with.
They have
tennis.
devices now that make them go lower or up, so we're gonna work on that.
And he did offer to help financially
Yes.
with that, so.
Okay.
If you could maybe respond back to him and let him know what the planning is, that would be great.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Those are the two things that I had. Anything else? All right, if not, city administrator report. Mr. Cheney?
Continue working on parking, and, we're actually looking a lot into the wayfinding signs.
Friday is the Christmas party, the most RSVPs we've had in for a very, very long time, so a lot of staff are gonna be attending. I encourage you, if you haven't RSVP'd, then you can attend, even if you just stop by to say hi and tell the staff, great job, that would be much appreciated. So that's this Friday. We're finishing up the budget, making sure we end on a positive note, so we're working on that. The work plans, every department is working on their work plans now, so we can get those online fairly quickly, hopefully by the first week in January. The surveys that I mentioned last time will be available on Friday, so we will start handing them out for everybody that comes into City Hall. And we'll have a box, and so we'll start that, and also reached out to the Air Force Academy to see about doing a citywide survey and what that would look like, and it will be probably 3 to 4 to 6 months before that would be ready. But we wanna make sure we do it right before we do it. And then I just wanna say, I hope all of you and your families have a wonderful holiday, and thank you for your leadership. I will be off for a couple of days, and then Roy will be off for a couple of days, but one of us will always be here. But thank you for an amazing year and for giving Roy and I this opportunity. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Howell. Also, thank you, Ms. Howell and Mr. Cheney, for your kind gifts. If you haven't read your note, the gifts that were waiting for you will take care of them, so very, very much appreciate that.
I got a rock in mine.
It was cold.
If I may, I had a couple of reminders. I sent out committee information to council. If you could get that back to me, that is for the January 7th meeting to help with those liaison selections. And then the other thing was those of you that are going to be leaving us off the council, if you haven't turned it in yet, if you can get those top 5 accomplishments to me as soon as you can, I would appreciate it, so I can get those finalized and ready for that meeting as well. Thank you.
Anything else? All right.
You got mine, right?
I'm sorry?
Yes. Thank you.
All right, we have item L, which is an executive session. We have an executive session to discuss a personnel matter regarding an employee or an applicant for employment, unless the employee or applicant requests an open meeting pursuant to section 5.1A of the Manager's Municipal Charter. The executive session concerned the annual performance review of the finance director. And Mr. Parker, were you about to say something?
I was not.
You were not, all right.
Vote
Would entertain a motion. You want to take a break? Sure, we'll take a quick 5-minute break. Thank you, everybody. I meant to mention, we'll see you on the 7th.
It's gonna happen one way or another. I'm only a little scared. I'll tell you what, you're going to go by a lot faster than you used to.
Oh, yeah.
Holy cow.
You might want to talk to Roy.
That's because
Are you going to be the attorney?
I fill out field training. So we had him, we had 3 vacancies, we hired 3.
Oh, yeah, right. Total deer on the way in here, she said.
Yeah.
Right after you guys were talking about it.
Yes. He ran out with some ice stuff and threw it down.
Nice,
No extra work, and that's minimum staffing, that just keep.
So I don't know, I think, if you look at it, you drove up to the river, it's like,
17 with the additional spot.
So, I understand what you're saying.
got a couple.
So, your assessment is part of it.
Anybody parks?
Everybody parks.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we gotta drive through it.
Investigations going on. There's no way to guys doing the investigations, the fraud investigations. That's a very handle, and now a person shot and go towards the outside.
Spread it all back.
So if we have 2 working today, there's a fraud investigation out there that would take a fraud investigator a month to work. That's on the street.
I think it's still investigating.
Yeah, that does.
Yes. It takes them off the street, so I'm at work every day, and I'm just in uniform, in the office, doing all this paperwork, on the phone, for 5 hours.
Yeah.
It's so different. I'd like to have a good luck. Yeah, then you should figure it out.
Well,
I would have.
Yeah, and that's why you also from your side, here, we discussed a lot on the marijuana, medical marijuana.
Probably not gonna stick around for Rebecca to review. Usually girls.
This is
So, I was in the Army, I graduated from high school, I was gone in the Army in 5 days.
And I
The next
started
day,
it.
I've never had a job in my entire life where I could go to school. So,
I made the
all
motion.
do, except for 2 of the guys that I were still 2 of the guys. They all do.
Am I the only slicker that's not? I've been thinking about it.
First thing on Chevy Caprice.
But
Doritos is
change my name check, this is in here.
Yes, again, just another one. So we have 3 sliders, one Boy Scout.
So,
Actually, pretty close to that in my mind.
Yeah, great. Okay, I was just looking at just how to you guys
You don't.
if you get held up by somebody. So, you and Sarah right now, are you just a transition? Are you gonna keep it on? So, would you both be part-time? I didn't know that she had been part-time before.
Yeah.
So, buying my house, online history, we were closing on Monday. So I closed in my house at 10 a.m. They wanted me to do a walk through the house at 11 after I signed. And they were closing at 3 p.m. somewhere else. I said, that's cool, they come to the house and we'll meet them, I'll show you little, secret scenes where the hidden door frame is. They can. They call it real estate, with this guy's chilled out. No, they wanted us to go. So we had to leave. They got done. 2 hours later, they called us. We had to shoot. I was like, what's your issue? Right now, personal friend. I heard pretty much second hand when I had to switch it to the house. So, how's your mom doing?
Oh, she
drives. Has the washer been turned on for years?
Yeah, you actually work great. That's good. She starts to have like standard radiation.
The rubber gasket down in there.
I kind of went up
The
there.
axle was dripping just slightly. You see it run down the
That's the worst part.
That's built in, you know, where you watch your surgery. So they called and said, we didn't sign until that's fixed because it's ruining the driveway.
10 years because you
Drywall, there's nothing wrong with
So, yeah.
So thanks for asking about the they're not signed. Because I'm just where wire money about now we're closing down there at 5 o'clock, 2 hours. The stripe. Remember those things? I said, I didn't argue because they were immediately. There's no going back to my time.
Yeah, it's good now.
I thought I explained it. I totally disagree.
Well, it would generally be in your direction.
Yeah,
I mean, at the end, the one stack is.
I'll send it to me.
Okay, yeah, that's why you yeah, I appreciate that though. Thanks, yeah. But feel free, I'm always trying, I was working the whole time on that. Thanks. I appreciate it. It was great. Next week I'm gonna do a half time actually for sure.
That's full time for you, that's 20 hours.
So he called a friend and showed up 15 minutes later and unscrewed it, screwed it on because he had a pipe. Then she said, they signed 5 after hours, and the title company still got the money off of that. So, all done. Joe here, cool. Keys were waiting on me. My real estate person also met me at the house. Opened it up, helped us get back to my son and I drove that day 26 minutes. He was 13, non-stop. We left at 8 a.m. and we drove to the Lima Del house after 30 non-stop. All the girls stopped at Kansas and took out. So we got off by 70 at 24th line. Oh yeah, 26th. So at 2 a.m. we get off at 24th, which is pitch black. He goes to sleep. So I'm by myself. Oh my God. So we'll be but I've never been able to grow one, so I'm going to try to assimilate here.
Okay, we're back in session, and we'll go ahead and recall the executive session item L. Executive session to discuss a personnel matter regarding an employee or an applicant for employment, unless the employee or applicant requests an open meeting pursuant to section 5.1A of the Manatee Springs Municipal Charter. The executive session concerns the annual performance review of the city's finance director. Entertain a motion concerning our executive session.
I move we move into executive session to discuss a personal matter regarding an employee or an applicant for employment unless the employee or applicant requests an open meeting pursuant to section 5.1A of the Manatee Springs Municipal Charter. The executive session concerns the annual performance review of the city's finance director.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, any further discussion? No, vote. Motion passes unanimously. We're gonna pause for a moment, changing